There we go. All right. Good morning, everybody. We're here for our weekly Marion County Board of Commissioners board session. It's Wednesday, October 30th, the day before that, whatever holiday that is, 2024. It is 9:04. We're here in the Senator Hearing Room at Courthouse Square. And as always, we start with the Pledge of Allegiance, if you'll join us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Anybody else tired of watching TV? Oh my gosh. All right. We have nobody signed up for public comment this morning, and our first item is a presentation for Youth Employment Grant Program Biennial Report. Huh? What did I say that was? What did I say that was so? Well,
he goes, come on, guys.
let's go. Let's get it going.
Well, good morning, Commissioners. My name is Kelly Weiss. I'm the Economic Development Program Manager here at Marion County. And this morning, we're pleased to be hosting Willamette Workforce Partnership. They're going to be providing their twice annual report on their work towards the Youth Employment Grant Program. So Marion County has an agreement with Willamette Workforce Partnership, which allocates $60,000 each year to the program for through our economic development funding. And the current contract is set to expire. Siri, come on, I'm in a meeting.
That AI stuff.
Stop listening to me. All right, so with that quick introduction, I'll turn it over to Kim Parker-Loretis. She's the Willamette Workforce Partnerships Executive Director, and Dean Craig, Willamette Workforce Partnerships Business Services Director.
Good morning, Commissioners. Happy to be here. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm going to sort of set this up, and then I'm going to really hand it over to Dean here, who has been running this program, but thrilled to be operating another year of the Youth Employment Program, and it has gotten off to great success. There's Commissioner Bethel. Good. I was thinking about you. We had a little bit of a delay at the beginning just because of the contract, and so we weren't able to start at the beginning of the summer, which will be reflected in some of the data, but are confident that that will be rectified through the rest of this year and certainly for next spring. So with that, this is the flyer that we developed for recruiting, and it was distributed widely. We'll get through that in a little bit. And as of today, last week maybe?
Yeah.
This is the data. So I'm going to turn it over to Dean, and the two of us will just sort of go back and forth. And of course, if you've got any questions during the presentation, please let us know.
So with our distribution channels.
I'm sorry, just go ahead, Dean, go ahead and introduce yourself for the record. I forgot to have Kim do that too.
My name is Dean Craig. I'm the Business Services Director for Willamette Workforce Partnership.
Thank you.
Sure. Since we began the program in July, early July, we had 19 businesses apply who proposed that they would hire 53 youth. 9 different communities throughout the county, 9 different business categories. The bulk of those have been in restaurants, hospitality type settings. Business ranges from as small as 3 up to 27. Next slide. 24 youth have completed the employability survey, which was a component of the contract this year. And the results have been interesting, I'll say. I need to do a little work on how it's set up for the youth to do, for a little bit more pre-work with them so that they understand the purpose of the survey. We just did a brief paragraph of what we were trying to collect from them. I'm not sure that it landed well with particularly the younger youth. So the older ones, I think, got it more than the younger ones.
Is that a survey from a state grant? that's
No,
required?
no. This was in response to your request that we kind of identify who the youth are and what the impact of this program is on them. So what we, as a reminder, what we've decided to do is ask them to do a self-assessment at the beginning of their work experience or the beginning of their job, and then a self-assessment at the end. And we are using Oregon's employability skills, which is a set of essential skills, basically, soft skills. We use the word essential now because they're not really very soft. So we're using that as our model, but this is the first time we've done it. And so as Dean is referencing, we're trying to kind of figure out how we can force these young employees to get in, self-assess, and then assess themselves later. And then we'll also ask the employers to do the same thing at
Because
the
it's
end.
likely they don't even understand what you're asking.
Yeah, well, that could be part of the issue,
It
yeah.
could be, yeah. You can kind of tell throughout the series of questions that they just kind of hit go sometimes. So a little
Well,
clarity, I think.
And that would be the question. Was this survey originally designed for adults who have gone through some sort of, it is for youth?
It's designed for youth, yes.
We designed it for this program. So this is the first time we've used it, so
Okay.
we'll see how it goes.
While we did, yes, design it for this program, it was pulled from a statewide effort of employability skills that are going throughout as many school districts as choose to adopt it. And so primary grades, high school, and college and beyond, so adults as well. And businesses will be able to use this tool as well when it's complete, which hopefully will be any day.
Can you make sure we have a copy of that
Yeah,
survey?
yeah, for sure.
That'd be great.
Even
Thanks.
if it doesn't have, if the data doesn't make sense, I'd like to understand what it is that you're actually asking them.
Yeah,
We actually have a little bit, we have a slide on that in here, do we not?
not with much detail.
Here we go.
It just kind of gives you.
This gives you a sense of the kinds of things we look at, though, and
Right.
what's been identified in the essential employability skills.
Yeah, there's 10 segments to it identified here.
But we'll definitely get you the specific survey as well.
Could you go back
I'm
one? Or
sorry.
were you reading that? I'm sorry. Were you reading that,
I
Commissioner?
read it, I'm good.
Yeah.
Actually, what I took away from that slide is that
25 questions may be too many.
for the attention span of youth, maybe, I don't know. I mean, I
It'd
think
be-
about my
It'd be
own
too many
children.
for me.
Well, I have children that are in the age range of the focus group or the target audience that we're trying to get into jobs. And what I know to be true in my own circumstances is that they don't actually actively live the words on that list.
Yeah.
And while they hear me talk about things like collaboration and communication,
What's it mean to them?
they have no idea what that means. And they don't have real life application of it. And so it's difficult for them to look at that and be like, how am I a collaborator? You know, like if you ask them what it does it mean to be a team player, they could probably answer your question. And then if the employer that they're working with, and in the restaurant industry, no offense to the hamburger flipper to my right, they also probably don't use a lot of those words in their general context as if we would here in like office environment. And so maybe working on your survey to be adaptable to them. You know, we think about it like in the legislature, they're supposed to write bills at a 5th grade level,
Yep, yep.
so that way folks can read it, actively read it.
Yeah, that's why I could read them when I was over there.
I just wonder if there's a way to transition, and I think it'd be interesting. Like I know surveys are supposed to be very like black and white, like you enter and you exit at this space. But it would be interesting to me to see if you ask them the question a certain way in the beginning, and then ask the same question differently at the end to see if they have grown in their comprehension of certain types of skills and how they approach them with the different words.
And that is the plan beginning in November, to follow up, ask the same student, the same youth, the same questions posed a different way.
Interesting. Okay.
So
Yeah,
I
I'd
will
love to
send
see
those
the
to you
whole
though,
thing just
because
to
there is
get
a
into
brief
it.
description of each of those words.
Yeah.
So
It's great feedback.
doesn't mean they're getting it fully.
Yeah, no, it's
No, I mean, as a mom of teenagers, I often wonder why they don't get it.
All mine didn't get was clean their room. Where were we?
Okay, let's see, let's go back. I think we've covered this.
Yep.
Okay, so let's go to the next slide here. Okay,
So our outreach efforts were with a whole bunch of different folks, including SEDCOR and our friends here at the county, chambers all over the county, a couple of different groups, Be Black Foundation, North Marion Business Alliance, Latino Business Alliance. Best response has absolutely been word of mouth.
Yeah.
Which is true of most things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Beginning of the summer, our campaign will begin earlier for next spring, I should say, not summer, but spring, in April, which I think will be advantageous to getting more youth engaged as well.
Do you have a QR code that can lead people to information?
Yeah.
Could you send it to me?
Yes.
It's right there, just so you know, but yes.
Yeah, I don't carry that
too.
flyer around, but I would take a picture of it and like share it with people. I tell
Yeah.
People often about this, and I'm like, well, you're just gonna have to go to their website and figure it out.
Yeah, no,
and I'm
great.
sure they don't.
Yeah.
Several have called me though and told me that you told them to call me.
Oh, good. I have said, call Dean. He'll help you.
Yeah, one of the challenges we have, as Kim mentioned earlier, we got a little bit of a late start just due to contracting challenges, is we miss the students being in school.
Yeah.
Once they're out of school, it's just hard to grab them. And frankly, some of the businesses said, well, we didn't know if you were gonna do it, so we didn't do it.
Oh.
So,
I would also say, when we talked last April, I think it was, when I was with you all upstairs, and we talked about how can we better engage the youth, we
it was May.
It was May,
I
because
was
you
in
were
Texas.
gone, yeah. We set up an opportunity for youth to go directly to our website and apply. And so as an opportunity to sort of connect interested workers with employers, and that hasn't taken hold yet. So
Yeah.
we're gonna continue to try that, but by far, I think have we had any youth apply? Two, okay. But clearly this continues, at least this year, to be sort of an employer support program. So I think that part of our efforts will be continually reaching out to youth and saying, hey, if you want a job this summer, come to our website, apply, and then see if we can connect them to employers.
So, yeah, and we'll begin that in April, connecting with the schools, in particular for that part.
And because of our limited resources, I think the CTE programs would be the the highest
for sure.
priority to start with this, because those kids are getting some skill that they may be able to apply for a summer job, and an employer would get some credit for it.
And I'm connected with most of the CTE teachers across the county.
Yeah, it's
Most of them are waiting.
interesting to get those potential employers that are coming in and out of there to be aware of the program as well.
Yeah.
I do think, though, while I appreciate the concept of this trying to be like a youth-supported program, they have no idea and/or interest in why it's difficult for an employer to pay them any wage.
Nope.
Agreed.
This,
You're right.
the onus is really on the employer, and the burden is 100% on the employer. And so, well, I think I think you should definitely get into the schools earlier. I can think of as a dozen ways as to how you would do that. And I would honestly shoulder that to the school districts, because they have the ability to engage these youth in different ways through their messaging, and they should want to do that. They talk about employability being one of their primary outcomes to achieve, and maybe we can challenge the school districts to figure it out, through some thought competition in the future. But I do think I think employers want it because it alleviates some of the burden of the cost, and that's why it's driven by them so much. And also, they're just overwhelmed, employers. And managing the goal for me, like every time I tell an employer about it, I'm like, look, it's expensive already to have a youth because you have to train them from scratch to do whatever you're asking them to do. And you don't have time for that. And so just consider this like, a stipend from us to say thanks for your time to bring these youth on and to help our community. But even still, I heard from an employer that was like, it doesn't seem like it'd be that complicated, but it is complicated. There's extra work that they have to do to track as far as the hours, and they have to manage it differently in their books. It's reported differently through some system that they report to at the state level because of the subsidy, if you will, that they're receiving for that pay. It's like a whole category that they have to navigate, so they don't see it as revenue coming in when they receive
Interesting.
funding to pay that kid. So there's some interesting nuances to it that also causes employers today to be like, I don't want one more thing.
Right. It's not worth it. It's not worth it.
Yeah.
And if there's any way that we can make that, we continually, try
Right.
to adjust and be as simple as possible on our end.
Yeah.
So if you get feedback that, you know, we're always open to that. And I feel like we've adjusted since we first
quite a lot.
started this
I
program.
100% do not think it's at your level.
Yeah.
I think it's absolutely at the level, like I own a business and I can think about if I'm bringing in any type of cash, I have to report that, and then I have to somehow figure it out in my system to report to ODR, so that way I'm not being taxed on
Right.
that income, in essence.
Yeah.
It's super frustrating, and it's a little complicated, and we have an HVAC person out near us that's done this a few times, and I've been curious if they've even navigated it as far as like whether they care about it being revenue or not. It's not a lot of money, but it still is. For some people today, if it pushes you over the threshold by just a few dollars, you're paying in a different tax bracket in
Right,
Oregon.
right.
That's super burdensome. And they're paying attention to that, which then harms these youth getting jobs.
Right.
Yes.
My message to employers is that this is an investment in the future.
Yes,
I-
they don't want to pay for it to the government.
Yeah.
Commissioner, I would think, you're talking about the reimbursement that I get?
Yeah.
Oh, I would just, I mean, yeah, I mean, sure, it's income coming in, but I would just put it as a credit to my labor cost, and it's just, I don't have as big a deduction on my, you know, my net income goes up because I have some other income, but it's not, I mean, if you're talking about a business that has, you know, $1 million in income, and what's the maximum they get reimbursed?
6,000.
Yeah, it's very new. I don't think any employer would make a decision not to do it because of the tax implications.
I think it just depends on where they're at.
It's more about hiring
in
the
this space
youth.
of having to pay a tax on a net
Yeah.
versus a gross, and we're in that space right now in Oregon, navigating that as employers.
As far as process for the program goes, we make it very, very simple on the employer.
Yeah,
This wouldn't be gross income.
right.
This would be a credit. I would never show this as a revenue in my business. I would show it as a credit to my labor cost.
Well,
I'm
you're,
not-
you're definitely an expert in that space.
I
and
can
not
help somebody
everybody
get
is.
around that.
I'm not either.
It's like getting a rebate for your workers' comp through SAFE or whatever. I always had other income, and there's a credit on other income. Sure, it changes my net revenue, but it's not a sale that I ring up at the top line. So I can help anybody that wants to.
He's gonna give a
Figure that
tutorial.
And I'm not even a
Sorry about
CPA,
that.
Video,
but I did it for many years.
Serious, I think, actually, I'm not mad at that. Should make us be paying attention and bring you in for some small
All right.
business class.
Moving right along.
So to date, as of, I think it's actually been a week and a half or so, 2 weeks is before the conference.
Okay.
We've cut checks for $27.58.20 and reimbursed 557.04 hours.
I
It's
don't know why
important.
we put that detail in there to round it off, but
I
whatever.
get it from the bean counter.
Exactly. It's the number we got.
Yeah. And as we continue to market and discuss opportunities out the county, the conversations become more about investment in the youth. I think that's the important thing for employers to grasp, and most do. Most get it. Not all. Jeremy wants to do it. He's excited about doing it next year. He got a late start this year because his season's relatively hot weather.
Yeah.
That's it.
I would really like for John in our office to reach out to them and do some media around this. I think there's other people in the audience also that could do some media around this. I think it's super important that we get the messaging out, and I've seen some real creative opportunities in the community as far as messaging, like this is what's happening. Like, for example, What's Happening Salem just comes to mind when I said this is what's happening. Jake Espinoza has a
I
really
just
great,
talked to Jacob about this the other day.
yeah, and he's partnering up with some folks to do different types of documentaries and some really interesting marketing that will capture, I think, a different audience that might be interested in this.
Agreed.
Yeah, and I think the youth could help. In fact, last night I was on an event where some youth from Valor Mentoring, who are part of the CTE program at McNary for videography, were doing the actual, like, videography. There might be just an opportunity to attract them into this and get them to do their own messaging.
Yep.
Valor Mentoring is also a participant. in this program.
Yeah, I'm sure. So,
It's good stuff.
and we're like 4 years in, really kind of 3.5, because my first year we got this late. Thanks for taking it on last minute. Tamara did a great
It's good. We're
job.
excited that it'll just continue to grow.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the good news. Obviously, we haven't actually reimbursed very much money yet, so it will,
Yeah.
it'll explode. And we've got the holidays coming up. I mean, there's no reason why this is now, the way we've structured the contract now, it's year round, so it's not just
Right.
summer. So there's no reason why we can't be promoting it right now.
Yeah, well, I look forward to seeing it growing.
Yeah, good.
Thank
Let's
you.
do
for
it.
Thank you.
doing
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I don't know
What do you
how
want
to
me
do
to
that.
do with this?
Just leave it. It's a dangerous device.
Yeah, no, I don't want to mess anything up. Thanks, Kelly.
All right, so thank you very much, appreciate it. And we'll move on to our next presentation with SEDCOR. So welcome. You're still here, Kelly?
I'm still
Yeah?
here. In the side seat once again. Just for the record, Kelly Weiss, Economic Development Program Manager. And this morning, we're also hosting SEDCOR, which is the Strategic Economic Development Corporation. They're going to be providing their quarterly report towards their work for business retention and expansion services here in Marion County. So we have a grant agreement with SEDCOR, and we allocate $160,000 each year from our Economic Development Program Fund, which is funded by lottery dollars, to be able to support SEDCOR in their business sector support. So I will turn it over to Eric Anderson, SEDCOR's president, and then Kip Morris, SEDCOR's Business Retention and Expansion Manager for Marion County.
Thank you,
Great.
Kate. Good morning, commissioners. Thanks for having us today. Oh,
I
sorry.
know, you gotta talk into that microphone.
Yeah. And just introduce you for the record. Thanks.
Eric Anderson with SEDCOR. Thank you for having us this morning. We're here to give our quarterly update on what we've been up to and answer any questions you might have. As you know, we're here to leverage public and private partnerships to successfully grow, retain, and attract high-value jobs and capital investment in the region. The main part of our thrust with Marion County's contract is business retention expansion, which is, as you know, also where the jobs come from and the investment comes from in the community largely. We've had 25 business visits this quarter. Included in the companies that we're actually doing some good projects with. We've talked about Agility Robotics before, but I did want to give you one update that they have been actively working with us to identify supply chain opportunities in the region. So that's one thing that's, I think, a nice benefit for us is we've already been able to introduce them to a couple other potential suppliers, and they've been following up with them. Kip, do you want to talk about Cascade Fruit Growers?
Yeah.
You'll have to introduce yourself.
Yeah.
Kip Morris, SEDCOR. Yeah, so we met with Cascade Fruit Growers. They're looking at expanding as well. So they're looking at 3 to 5 years out. So there was a talk with them, meeting with Business Oregon and with OMEP to look at how they can adapt the facility that they're currently in and how they can grow and expand to meet what their production goals are
Where's
in the
the-
next 3 to 5 years.
Where's their facility? Which
In
one?
Brooks.
Okay,
Yeah.
it's the old Norpac facility?
Yep.
Okay.
And what's OMEP for people who have no idea what that is?
Oregon Manufacturing and is it
Extension
Extension Partnership.
Thank you.
Yes.
The Hazelnut Growers of Oregon project with Northwest Hazelnut, I know you were quite involved with that, with the Georges. We've been very thankful to be working with the county on the project because it's really a good one. The Hazelnut Growers facility was closed over the summer, and the deal with Northwest Hazelnut George Pack was approved as it went into place as of September 1st. So they are in the building. We have gathered together several different groups to meet with them over the time, including OMEP, the Oregon Manufacturing Extension Partnership. We toured the new facility with Sean George, and recognized that there was a lot of opportunities for some value-added work in increasing efficiency and throughput. And so they definitely have their own vision for the facility, but it was great to hear some connectivity with the resources that OMEP have. We brought the Energy Trust of Oregon in there to be looking at the new facility as well. Everything from, it's not that old a building, but certainly if there's opportunities for, I think the guy we had with us recognized very quickly with some of the motors and other things and lighting that there were going to be some opportunities for them to participate with that. The enterprise zone approval is in place now, so they've got the enterprise zone for the any improvements that they're making to that building. And we brought in the Oregon Department of Agriculture for their machinery and equipment certification program. So any new equipment that they'll be buying will be eligible for that, which gives them a year extra than the enterprise zone, so it's a better deal for them. And we've been working with Business Oregon, and I believe it's through the department process now of a strategic reserve fund request that will be going to the governor. And that will be for a forgivable loan to help with that project. And I think, as you all know, why we brought the state into this and said we really need to figure out some ways to help, incent this if possible. Because it's a big risk for the company in one stage, but so important for the industry. And there were dozens of farmers that if this didn't go through, we're going to have product that wouldn't be able to be processed this fall. So, as I think you well know, I think we're 99% of the American hazelnut market is in this region and in this county specifically. Yeah. So it's an important industry for us. And so we look forward to continue to working with them. That's been a great project for us. You want to talk about Oregon mining and agriculture?
I want to say thanks again to the commission for connecting us with Oregon mining.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you to the commission for connecting us with the Oregon mining and ag fabrication. Due to the GK expansion, they're looking to have to relocate because of their lease expiration, and so there's an opportunity for them to build on new ground or relocate to a new space. There's also some discussion just with the development in that area, new partnership coming into the old GK building, GK expanding, and then Oregon mining moving out. There might be some opportunity to have a discussion about what the plans are for those grounds and that zoning in the future. Right now they're looking at, was it commercial with ag production zoning? And the challenge of industrial zoning has typically been a pretty big challenge for one company to face, but when you have multiple and they're kind of growing into a space, that might be a better fit for that area. So there's some discussion around that.
GK.
Yeah, and then also there's a second GK machine project coming through right now. So the first project that went through actually capped the amount that we could put through with the RIPTE program. So there's a second portion of that coming through right now for equipment and continuation of that expansion.
And we're working on, we've hosted 2 recruitment leads in the past quarter, over the past quarter. The first is Chromo 24, which is an e-commerce business. They're a European-based online auction house and retailer of high-end watches that I can't ever afford. And
they're not necessary if that's
yeah, exactly. But they are specifically looking for a West Coast operation for their timelines with given the time zones, and liked the fit that Willamette Valley gave them as a German company. They saw lots of similarities between the access to the outdoors, the wine regions, et cetera. So we're continuing to work with them. That's, as we found out, a long-term kind of prospect for them, but it was a good conversation, talking anywhere from 30 to 50 jobs in a call center for them. And then Sunshine Produce, I think I had talked about these folks in the past. It's a Chinese company that produces or processes pumpkin seeds and makes them into oils and additives and other things. And they do have an American presence, but they're looking for kind of diversify their supply chain as well. And we've been helping them on a test patch of pumpkins over the summer. And they came back here in beginning of September, and we're really pleased with how the pumpkins are growing here, their type of pumpkins. And so we've introduced them. We've gone through the process of doing some utility work, identifying what the costs of. They're looking at probably 150,000 square foot building. The tricky thing is the size of the clearance has to be 32 feet for their equipment. So a lot of the buildings that are built these days don't quite hit 30 feet, or somewhere in the 24 to 26 foot clearance. So, but we did have a couple that we could at least give them an example of, and they have been following up with the realtors. So we're staying attached to this. Also working with some farmers to identify some potential costs of contract farming, just so they have an idea what they're working with in this area.
This is an interesting, so you did mention this before, and I didn't realize you were involved, but I have a farmer friend who's growing pumpkins for seeds. I was like, it makes sense because, I utilize the seeds, we bake them after we carve our pumpkins. But I asked this farmer, I was like, what are you gonna do with the rest of the pumpkin? Like the meat of it? And she was like, I don't know what they're gonna do with it actually. And I was like, okay, we should do full cycle of we've got a fair amount of livestock around here that would very much love to have access to the meat of the pumpkin. And anyway, there is a picture that I received of they did some testing. They took the pumpkins out of the field, opened it up, looked at the seeds, and then discarded the pumpkins. There's just massive amount of just pumpkins in this farmer's field. And they don't have livestock personally. And I was like, maybe we can just borrow some goats or something from somewhere nearby so they don't just rot.
Well, and I think
I
it's
had no
kind of
idea.
funny too, because I think some of the pumpkin processors do the opposite, where
Yes.
they're like, okay, we don't want the seeds, but we
Yep.
want the pumpkins. So it's like a Reese's
Well,
peanut
they're-
butter cup. We need to
Yes.
get them together.
But they're two different pumpkins.
They are.
And there's I think Lynn County, I met somebody, this is a couple years ago, that their family, that's what they do is produce pumpkins for seeds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you connected, are they
No,
connected up
I'm
with
aware
those?
of them because it's when you're actually looking for American-grown pumpkin or Oregon-grown even, it's hard to find. I did not realize that
The
Bulgaria,
particular breed.
China and Bulgaria were most of your pumpkin seeds that you would get in the store.
Yeah.
Like the bulk pumpkin seeds from China or Bulgaria.
But did you know that the pumpkins for Libby's is grown in Marion and Lynn County?
Oh, I did not know that.
Well, now you do.
I know
Your
Stallbush-
pumpkin pie for sure
and
came from
Stallbush
this county
Farms,
or
I know,
Lynn.
grows a lot of pumpkin as well down in
Yeah.
the county.
We have connections to pumpkin farmers if you need some help.
Okay, good. That's great. See, we always get something,
I know.
a bonus out of it.
Well, I just happened to walk out their door one day, and the field used to be something different. I was like, "What's with the pumpkins?" And they were like, "We just got a call one day, and this person said, hey, you have this field. We need the seeds out of the pumpkins. Would you grow this particular breed of pumpkin?" And they were like, "Sure." They're invasive, so they're like, Anyway, it's very interesting
Yeah.
nuance in this particular region that they're being grown in right now.
Well, and also showing that we pretty much can grow anything here,
Yes,
which is
we
great.
can. Very quickly, pumpkins grow in the Lehigh Valley.
Yeah. And I do want to add to we didn't put this on the list, but we've been working with the city of Silverton, along with Patty, to look at a business retention expansion program. Actually, we'll limit workforce partnership as well, but I think we're going to be a partner in that, really targeting the traded sector businesses there. On the innovation and entrepreneurship side, the Latino Microenterprise Development Program, we just put in another application to continue that through the end of June. And we are planning for another Marion County. We've got a Salem one going on now, and we'll have another Marion County if we get the funding. The Launchman Valley Regional Innovation Hub, I think I talked to you before about our application for this. We were approved, and that allowed us to contract with Mike White, who I believe you, the commissioners know. So to continue his work, he's been kind of doing things on the side for us for a while, and where we've been able to hold bake sales and things to get him some funding. And we also contracted with Molly Wea, who's going to be what we call the navigator for that same position. So we've got Mike and Molly working together to develop a series to fortify our work around the coffee clubs for entrepreneurs, the pitch competitions, just that whole ecosystem development here. They've been doing quite a bit of outreach so far. We had the Pitch Willamette event in September. That drew 60 people. We had 9 pitches, I think, for 8 investors. Got a lot of attention for that too. So we're really trying to build this region as a place where people can come to launch a business. Tonight, we're working with the Oregon Entrepreneurs Network on a pub talk. It's going to be hosted at the Chemeketa Center for Business and Industry. It's going to be talking about access to venture capital, and we hope to have investors there as well as entrepreneurs looking to figure out a plan to attract venture funding into their business. As I mentioned, the coffee clubs, we've got them going again in Salem. We've been talking with Staten and Silverton about hosting them as well, so that's something with Molly's work. One of the things for us is to try to get them launched and then identify people in the community to actually kind of run them and own them and host them so that they continue on after the funding, if the funding inevitably runs out. And Staten's a good location, particularly because they have a co-working space now, and that would be kind of a really great way to kind of host that. We did a pop-up marketplace for food and beverage entrepreneurs earlier I guess last month in September.
Was that at Chemeketa?
At Chemeketa, yeah. It was a little smaller this year than last year purposefully. I think it was just a little bit easier to manage, but once again, very much a success. The folks that were exhibiting there they did their pitches. I think we heard 15 businesses try to give it a shot at doing their 3-minute pitch or 5-minute pitch on what they do and why their product is so good and why you should support it.
Oh, good.
I know I bought a lot of stuff as a result that's in my pantry. You get kind of guilted into buying something, and all of a sudden you're like, wait, this is good, and then all of a sudden your bag gets pretty heavy on the way out. But we're going to be planning one again next year. OEN says they want to do this again. We're going to put it a little bit closer to the holidays, probably sometime later, mid to late November, a little bit before Thanksgiving, just to take advantage of people wanting to shop, and get some things on hand, different things on hand. You want to talk a little bit about North Marion?
Yeah, so North Marion Business Service Alliance, they're still growing and moving.
I know,
North
sorry.
Marion Business Service Alliance, they're still growing and moving strong. They're actually getting ready to engage also in a BRNE survey for their area as well, so heavily involved with the city of Woodburn and all the surrounding communities there. They're about to do their second cohort of the Business Boost ROI program, and that's reaching out to local businesses and traded sector businesses for identifying services that they might need help with and then making those connections for that help. And the biggest thing that's coming up is their BRNE survey.
Which is what?
Business retention and expansion.
Thanks.
Yes. Sorry. Yeah, so very similar to what the city of Silverton is going to be doing, so yeah.
Good.
When I worked for the state, they had an acronym jar. And Bill,
I
when Bill
know.
Scott was the director, we had to put $1, or it's
Yeah.
actually $0.25, I think, but inflation.
Dollar now for inflation.
Yeah, exactly. Also, one of the things we were able to do this, we got the Portland SBA office reached out to us when their administrator, Guzman, was going to be coming to town. And because we have our Ag Tech Center, Rec Regional Innovation Cluster that's funded by the SBA, we asked if there was a way that we could actually pull together what that's meaning for the region. So we had 2 or 3 farmers, a couple of our ag tech businesses, and we put together a panel for the SBA administrator. And actually our partners from Ag Launch, one of them flew out from Memphis to be there to make that connection. But I think that was a good investment of our time to really recognize that, help the SBA recognize that farms are small businesses also. And I think it was good for the region to host them here. One of the things that you should be aware of too is that the employment department came out with some numbers recently, and for the Salem metropolitan statistical area, so Marion and Polk counties, we've had a growth rate in new business startups and new business applications since the early 2000s of about 160%. We're one of the fastest growing counties in the state, or regions in the state, for new business startups. So it feels like the momentum is really good for the resources that we're trying to pull together now. There was surprising to me at least, but in hindsight it kind of makes sense, a big uptick in business starts during COVID and during the pandemic. People were at home coming up with great ideas and finally finding some time to implement them. That rate has not slowed down since the COVID rate. So as I think you all know, when you do your outreach to communities, there's a lot of entrepreneurial people in this region, and we're excited to hopefully be providing some tools to help them along.
What was that study that came out? Where can I find that data?
160% increase from the Oregon Employment Department. That was in new business startups.
I am just going to give credit to the commissioners for people wanting to do business here, because during the COVID crisis, they implemented their COVID relief dollars very quickly with a very direct cash payment to businesses to keep them going, where other regions did not do that. And if they did, it was super delayed and the businesses were already severely harmed. It was a massive lift for the county to do it the first time, and then we did it 2 more times after I got here. And I 100% know that because of that, businesses looked into Marion County and said, we want to be doing business here. Clearly we're supported. I was the chamber director in 2020 when they were implementing this, and they brought chambers to the table to say, how do we kind of work through this? The staff and the board's office facilitated it. And I know how hard it was because I've heard it repeatedly since I've been a commissioner, but it was absolutely one of the most genius things that came out of this board during COVID to make sure businesses didn't go under. And I would be interested at some point in doing some statistical study on the regions around us, not to cast any negative light out, but to see kind of in our space, what was that real impact and the sustainability of that investment. The ROI on it has to be huge because so many businesses stayed afloat because of that funding.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because I think Jan Fritz and the board's office staff, I think it's good for us to give them credit
Yeah.
for that. I remember at the time when we were having that conversation, I'm sure Commissioner Cameron remembers this as well, it was super tense because the state
Well, you
told us that we weren't going to receive any more economic development
Right.
funding. So because of the crisis, they said, we're freezing these payments. And I remember we had this conversation that we basically said, we have to get this money out into the community, even though we may not have.
We might eat it.
It might, yeah, like basically this
Yeah.
could impact our general fund, and I remember Jan said, that's okay. That's why we have lived within our means for the last 20 years, is so that when stuff like this happens, we have the resources to be there for our community. And I remember literally I had this conversation, we were having this conversation about, we were gonna do $250,000, I think, Commissioner Cameron, do you remember this? And we got 800 applications.
Uh-huh.
And I remember I went to Jan's office and I said, and I'm sure Commissioner Cameron has similar comments. I can't say no to 3/4 of these applicants. So I know we said $250,000, but I actually need $1 million. I remember saying this.
Yep.
And I said, will you support me if I go in there and say I need $1 million, even though we agreed to 250? And she said, yeah, we have the money, and that's what it's for. It's 4 times
Yeah.
like these. And then the part that I also want people to know is it was our staff in the board's office. So it was the people at the front desk, and it wasn't like there was some
The PIO
there wasn't
and
some
the government
department
relations coordinator.
that it was like these
Yeah.
people were literally hand cutting these
Over the
checks
weekend.
over the weekend because
Yeah.
because we knew that basically if people didn't get the money soon,
Yeah.
they would go out of business because it was on St. Patrick's Day. I remember because I care about that day, and it was sort of out of the blue, and so nobody was prepared for this,
Yeah.
right?
Kind of like Halloween to me.
You had restaurants who had bought a bunch of food for the big weekend,
Yeah.
right? And it all was going to go to waste, and so people had serious financial liabilities, and so our staff are just kind of ordinary, kind of like people whose job. I can guarantee their job description was not to stay over the weekend and cut checks to
To
small
review an
businesses.
application and figure out how to write a
I'm
check.
certain that was not part of their job description.
Well,
They stayed, and we got those checks out.
And then we handed the program off to Kim's group, if I remember
Yeah,
right,
later.
after that, and they started
And I remember I got
the grants.
Yep, that's right. I remember I got a letter back from a painting company, and this guy said, I had never missed payroll in 30 years, and I was about to miss payroll, and it wasn't a lot of money. It was like we gave him like a $2,000 check or something, right? And he said that was the difference between me being able. He said I have one employee.
Yep.
I only have one employee. It's a 2-man thing, and I haven't missed payroll in 30 years, and I was going to miss payroll until I got your check, and I just want you to know what a big deal that was to me. So things like that Jan do and the staff do sometimes don't get recognized. But if she didn't say yes, if she didn't say we don't have that money, if this body hadn't done a good job managing the resources over the years, we wouldn't have been able to do that. And if the staff wasn't willing to work outside of their job description over the weekend, those checks wouldn't have gotten out. And so, yeah, thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, well, I just want to say thanks for doing it. Because as a chamber director, I can attest to the number of businesses that I sat down with and filled out those quick applications. It wasn't very much information that you asked for. And it did evolve over time, the information that was required through Workforce Partnership. But it was dire straits. And people don't realize at the end of the day what $2,000 does. And it did grow over time. I mean, I can think of 3 restaurants off the top of my head right now that I sat with significant amount of time trying to figure out how to keep their entire business going when they had, they couldn't open their doors. All that to say, I think that the reason you can report on this statistic and why things are going so well in Marion County is because we are a welcoming community of businesses, and we work really hard with innovation and collaboration to keep people going, and we really honor their ideas of creativity. Like, it's super important to us, obviously, which is why we partner with you and Kim and her group and others. I love that statistic. Somebody better be talking about in State of the County, and it should be you, Colin. But
You should do it. If you love it, you get to do it.
Well, COVID's never going to go away. It's like, it's going to be a core memory for all of us that thrived through it, or whatever we did through it. And these are topics we don't really discuss. But I can tell you, every single business owner that experienced any type of support won't forget it and who did it for them. And I love that we're growing in our community, and I believe because of that.
Well, we used, in those days particularly, we're pretty close to the Willamette workforce
Yeah.
and our partners in this. But in those days, I think we're all just connected at a virtual hip.
Yep.
But, we looked at what you had done and used that as a best practice for some of the other communities that were struggling with the same issue. How do we get this
Yeah.
money out? So, what you put together very quickly here ended up informing other areas that in our region as well. So.
Yeah, I love borrowing ideas. We got our youth wage grant program, just to be clear, from Lynn County. I stole it right out of their books, gave it right to Kim. And we do it better than them, just to be clear.
Well, for infrastructure and workforce development, maybe the first couple of ones you can talk about, Kip.
Yes, so the workforce, or the warehouse and distribution roundtable gap analysis. So we had a number of different industries come together from warehouse and logistics that were looking for career pathways to help fill jobs. This was really started with the development of the Amazon, the anticipation of the thousands of jobs that are going to be going there, and then the attrition that we're going to feel with a lot of local businesses that have already been here with people moving, and trying to figure out how can we constitute workforce training and development to help fill those career opportunities. So we did, in collaboration with the North Marion Business Service Alliance, we did a roundtable gap analysis and then presented that to Shemeketa. And right now we're waiting to see how that's going to move forward. And then with the SEDCOR Construction Alliance, carrying on strong, we're looking at the Gilbert project is what we've been working on coming up. Right now we're at a place where we're ready to present out on the inspection that we did on the roofs for those 3 structures, and then see how we can collaborate with the city to move forward and hopefully maintain those structures appropriately.
And we are working with the Council of Governments on some workforce housing employer roundtables. We had some good success in Newburgh, working with. It started as a business retention expansion call, and they, ADEC identified that workforce housing was a big issue for them being able to retain workers and attract workers. So we worked with, in that case, we worked with the city of Newburgh and got other employers at the table, and we're going to try to recreate that in Marion County and in Polk County, in 2 separate roundtables, and that work will be started in the first quarter next year.
I would really be interested in following along with that.
Right?
If there's an opportunity for you to provide, I don't know
course.
that I
Oh,
can
yeah, we-
attend, but if I can, I'd like to be there. Workforce housing is something that I've been working on.
And it's we can't do this without local government being engaged in it too.
Yeah.
So it's and just as you want to talk about this.
Yeah, so a little bit of data on metrics for the last 4 months with community visits, business visits, SEDCOR events in Marion County, partner-hosted events, committee meetings, and trainings. So a little bit of training for the new guy. I've gone to a couple of different economic development sessions. I've been all the way up to Lacey, Washington, and all the way as far south as Klamath Falls. And then the Oregon Infrastructure Summit in Portland here recently. So a lot of training in the last 3 months. Business visits, we're out in the community quite a bit, so we're constantly visiting with businesses. We're getting a lot of collaboration, not only with Marion County, but also with Business Oregon. Committee meetings, trainings, yeah. So partner-hosted events, committee meetings, yeah. So a lot of committee meetings. North Marion Business Service Alliance, State and Sublimity Chamber, Santiam Canyon Leadership. There's a lot of different collaborations that we're a part of just to have that presence and to work with our local businesses and our local communities in the ways that they need. So there's been a lot of effort to build and to sustain those relationships.
Speaking about relationships, you do have Beth Witowski.
Oh, yeah.
She has never been to the MPP plant,
Oh,
and she would like a tour of that.
okay,
It just occurred to me, I have no time to take her, but I would love it if you could figure that
sure.
out.
And just some other news and updates. We've got a bunch of events coming up. I mentioned our, the one we have going on tonight with Oregon Entrepreneurs Network, but also the locally grown supply chain next week. This is our second year of doing this, where we bring processors together and then invite farmers to come and talk to them about what they need and how they might be able to contract with them.
I love that.
I do too. I wish we could get more people there. And I think next year we've had some engagement with Department of Agriculture and some other partners, but I think, you know, we're going to have to really try to spend
Are you
some
working with
time
Farm
in growing.
Bureau?
In the Farm Bureau, yep. We've got the Salem Launch Mid-Valley Coffee Club for startups and entrepreneurs. We have an Industry Insights on the 13th, navigating supply chains. We've got included in that's open road logistics, and lineage and Northwest Distribution. We have a webinar on expanding your export opportunities in Canada, and in November. November's a busy month, and in December we have our Industry Insights right before the holidays. So keeping busy with events. And just to end with, you know, we still want this region to be known, Marion County and the region to be known as a great place to start and grow a business. We've already talked about that. Equitable, inclusive business community in a region with unique strengths in agriculture, food production, manufacturing, and technology. I think the kinds of projects that we're seeing and the kinds of success we're seeing in the region and the growth we're seeing reflects that. So thank you, and happy to answer any other questions you might have.
I'd love that you allowed us to interrupt throughout your thing.
Oh, no, I appreciate the conversational aspect too.
Oh,
Yeah.
good.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for the work you're doing.
Oh,
Appreciate
thank
it.
you. Thank you for your support. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Kelly.
Who wants to fight over the really long consent calendar this morning?
Well, he did it last
I
week.
did it
I'm
last
happy to
week,
do
so
it.
Commissioner, I thought I was winning by doing it last week. And Commissioner Bethel just said, hold my beer and watch this.
You know, I actually look at the email that Brenda sends us 2 weeks in advance, so I know it's coming. All right, I move to approve the consent agenda under Clerk's Office. Approve amendment number 2 to the contract for services with Lynx Group, Inc. to add $216,000 for a new not-to-exceed contract total of $716,000. And extend the term date to December 31st, 2025 for ballot printing services for Marion County's 2024 general elections and anticipated elections in 2025.
I second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Just the comment that we talked about putting this out.
Yep,
for
I
request for
chased this
proposal
all the
at
way
end of
through.
this contract. All right, any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. All right. First item under action. Did I say aye? Yeah.
Yeah.
Aye. Okay. I'm a little foggy this morning, Brenda, so.
Me
keep-
too. It's
keep
been a
me in
long
line.
few
I've
weeks.
been fighting this head cold. All right, first item under Health and Human Services, consider approval of amendment number 2 to the contract for services with Caroline Grady Castillo. Wendy, I think you're the Wendy show today. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Wendy Zeker, Health and Human Services Public Health Division Director. I'm here for 2 amendments. This first one is with our health officer, Dr. Castillo, and we're excited to provide medical director services to the county's public health program, and she also is our health officer and is working on a couple of population-based health initiatives. And this contract would be extended for 1 year if approved until December 31st, 2025. It adds an additional $100,000 in funds, bringing the total contract value to $800,000.
Okay, questions for Wendy?
I don't have any questions. I'm just thrilled that we have her and we share her and no one else does. I think she's amazing.
She is amazing. Thank you.
Yeah.
You ready, Mr. Chair?
Okay, I am.
Okay, I move that we approve amendment number 2 to the contract for services with Caroline Grady Castillo to add $100,000 for a new not-to-exceed contract total of $800,000 to provide medical director services for Marion County's public health program and serve as a health officer through December 31st, 2025.
I second the motion.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Okay, and Wendy, you're still up for considering approval of amendment number 12 to the incoming funds intergovernmental agreement with the Oregon Health Authority.
Correct. This amendment is number 12 to the intergovernmental agreement. This amendment 12 adds $255,833.46K in funding, $151,971 to PE 07, which is HIV prevention services. Initially, this contract was funded for 1 month. Our budget included an estimate, and this is the full year, which is in line with what OHA has awarded to us. And then the 103,862 is for PE 4301, public health immunization services.
Okay. Questions?
I don't have any questions. Wendy has already answered all of them. We've
We've
chased
worked through this.
language as far back as through legal counsel. Thank you for that.
Yep.
Super important to our community that we do prevention and our version of harm reduction.
Okay.
Agreed.
All right.
I don't like that word.
I know you don't, but I think it's a necessary, if I'm being totally honest, it's prevention.
Prevention.
It's all
I'm
prevention.
comfortable with
prevention.
prevention. I'm comfortable with prevention.
Yes,
Okay.
I know it's inflamed and
All right.
whatever.
Commissioner, I'll take a motion. We're ready.
I move to approve amendment number 12 to the incoming funds intergovernmental agreement with the Oregon Health Authority to add $255,833.46 for the following programs for a new contract total of $16,191,083.95, effective August 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2025. Item 1, PE07, HIV prevention services in the amount of $151,971.46. And item 2, PE43-01, public health practice immunization services in the amount of $103,862.
I second the motion.
Been a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All right.
Thanks, Wendy.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, under Public Works, Chris is here for us to consider approval of a purchase and sale agreement between Marion County and Donna J. Burning, trustee of the Lucas Joint Revocable Living Trust, and Scott J. Bogman and Shelley J. Bogman, that utilize federal American Rescue Plan dollars, funding in the amount of $1,639,000 for the purchase of 12.25 acre portion of a tax lot located in Lynn County, Oregon, for the North Santiam Sewer Project. Chris, welcome.
Good morning,
Boy, you're-
Commissioners. Thank you.
Boy, you're dressed up today. Good to see you.
It's good to be up and about again.
Yeah.
For the record, my name is Chris Einmo with Marion County Public Works. I am the project manager for the North Santiam Canyon Sewer Project. And this is concerning a purchase and sale agreement that effectively has been negotiated with the owners that they would divide up their land into 4 pieces. And 2 of those pieces are the portions that we need for the project for the construction of the Mill City Gates wastewater treatment facility, as well as the access road around that. The other 2 portions would be retained by the owner. We're not buying them because that would be land that we don't need. So just some background, this would be entirely done out of federal dollars. There is no impact to local funds. Everything is coming through the American Rescue Plan Act. And this is all part of the agreement that we signed with Business Oregon to construct and deliver that plant. So the county would essentially take possession of the property and construct on it, build and permit the plant as the owner, and then it would, at that point, after it's been commissioned, and permitted and is operating, it would be turned over to the new owners of the plant, presumably Mill City, to take ownership of it from then on. So this particular site is of, long story short, we did a very exhaustive search of possible sites for this. And everything is dictated by the three-basin rule and the need for a rapid infiltration basin. So we had looked at a total of around 20 to 25 sites, I think, kind of between Mill City and Gates, trying to find one that was viable. We found 5 possible candidates, but we really didn't have any detail on the soils. So we did further testing on those 5 sites. And every case where we did testing, if we were too far away from the river, the soils became very clayey, and so it just wouldn't work. When the soils are not well draining, we end up with these prohibitively large basins. You need those sandy soils, which are only found closer to the river. But we also wanted to stay as far away as we could. So this one site, which is shown as GM1 on that graphic, that was pretty much right in the sweet spot where we could make it work, but still maintain that separation from the river. So it was pretty critical that we get this site. And so we started working with the owners. We obtained an access agreement to go in and do further scientific testing. We did coring, we did monitoring wells, and we determined that yes, it will work, and it kind of gives us, the right parameters to get a rapid infiltration basin working there. And then just for economic sense, we want to co-locate the treatment plant itself on the same piece of land. So that graphic there shows the property location. It's just east of the Mill City limits, and it's kind of right where Fairview Street becomes a county road. And right now, Fairview Street is kind of going straight across it. It's this old historic kind of dirt road. So what we would do is to purchase the land for a new alignment of Fairview Street, construct a section to Mill City standards along that, and then we would dedicate that as right-of-way to Lynn County. And then to the west is that piece, that is that 10.15 acre piece that we need for the plant. That includes enough space for the rapid infiltration basins themselves, the plant, and also it has some space in there for kind of a visioned future expansion. If, once we get to that point beyond the 20-year PSU projections, there would be space to further expand it. So this shows kind of a 3D computer rendering of what the site will look like. If you look at this graphic, there's kind of a tree line right around where that property line would be. And so it'll actually be a lot thicker than that in real life. It's just a visual barrier. So that's kind of delineating the site as we're proposing to buy it. And then that road would be a paved realignment of Fairview that takes us around the site. That way we have an access road for deliveries, operations, and just basically vehicles to come and go for the operation of the plant. So as part of this agreement with the owner, they would divide that according to the drawings we've given them. It's a total of about 2 acres would go into the dedication, and then that 10.15 acres would be retained by Marion County. There's also 2 other pieces that we don't need that the owner would then retain. And we just be kind of putting out that infrastructure in stubs to that while we're building the road. That way we don't have to cut it later. So it's kind of all there and ready for development. Fairview Street, we worked with Mill City and we met with Lynn County Road Department as well to make sure everybody's good with the proposed section and right-of-way width that's in there. So it would be built to city and county standards, actually putting in curb and gutter on the north portion that's kind of extending from where Fairview ends now. And then on the east side, we would keep it to more open drainage, a rural section. That way, we're not constrained by the curb and gutter elevations when we go to grade the site. This has all been discussed with the current owners and with the other agencies involved. And then there's a part of that, I'll actually go back. Yeah. There's currently an existing right-of-way that the county has going straight across that property. There's no way to really build around it that makes sense economically, so we've talked with Lynn County about just vacating that when we make the dedication. Okay. So the timeline here, as soon as this agreement goes into effect, we would have immediate and unrevocable access. That's pretty critical for all the permitting work we have to do. Especially we have to do NEPA clearance, we have to do further testing, we have to keep gathering data from those monitoring wells. So for the project's sake, we need to get on there. That was written into the agreement. Once this is signed, they have, I believe, 7 days to sign the parcel division, basically, and get that in for review. Goes through the county surveyor. Once that's done, we have 45 days to buy it and take possession. We want to keep this moving along because in early spring, we're hoping to do our early work amendment to the slating contract and start doing our site civil for the plant. So that'll actually be developing that road and starting some of the rough grading of the site. And that would then continue into the summer. Summer is really our target to start doing some of the heavy construction work for building that facility, which means laying out structural concrete, getting the site kind of flattened and graded the way we want it. So all this is fitting right into the timeline. Okay.
Just occurred to me that the
Yeah.
site is located just past that neighborhood in Mill City. Is there a plan, and maybe it's not workable, but to try to avoid sending all those rock trucks and all the major equipment trucks through their neighborhood to get to the site?
Well, taking it down Fairview would be some of the light access. We might go on that other side. The issue is that that piece of Fairview that goes a little bit further. I don't think I have a view of it. I don't have the picture, sorry, but that piece to the south where it curves around is on a pretty steep grade and it's all dirt road. So we might have to stabilize it if we're using that. I'll talk with the contractor though.
I'd like to, we just were up there, we took some people up there recently and showed them this site, and, we're driving down past the park through that brand new neighborhood with a brand new road on it, and, as the road authority, I'm always like, oh.
Well, that's on the Lynn County side.
I know, but still, it's expensive to replace asphalt.
Yeah.
And if we can, I know it's temporary, and also the least we can disrupt the community as possible, but also I'm thinking about long-term damage. Just those trucks are going to be heavy loaded with rock to create that road, among other things, repeatedly for several trips. So maybe they've already thought about it, because I think Sladen does a good job of trying to be thoughtful in the spaces that they work in. But in the event that they haven't, maybe we could explore trying not to destroy that tiny little neighborhood coming down.
Yeah, we'll look at some alternate access routes.
Okay.
Yeah, I know any way we go, takes us, there's not really any way that doesn't go by some owner, but Kingwood has less people on that side.
Yeah.
It
And the road isn't new. It's, maybe they need to replace it already in Mill City or Lynn County, and they can do it after the project's done.
Yeah, I'll look into that. I know part of Kingwood just had a new chip seal.
Perfect.
But maybe not that portion, so.
Either way,
Yeah.
I just, it might not work out, and maybe they're already thoughtful and have done it. Thanks, Chris.
Any questions?
All right.
Thank you.
One more step forward.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the purchase and sale agreement between Marion County and Donna J. Burning, trustee of the Lucas Joint Revocable Living Trust, and Scott Bauman and Shelley Bauman, that utilizes Federal American Rescue Plan Act ARPA funding, the amount of $1,639,000 for the purchase of a 12.25 acre portion of tax lot 09S03E32000100, located in Lynn County, Oregon, for the North Santiam Canyon Sewer Project.
I second the motion.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Other than to say this is good news, step forward. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Commissioners.
We own the property, well, soon, as soon as we sign, whatever. Now you can go dig.
Thank you.
Yeah, all right. Okay, it is past 9:30, so unless you need to take a break, I'm gonna go
No.
ahead and open a public hearing.
This will be
Public
fast.
hearing to consider substantial amendment number 1 to the fiscal year 22-23 annual action plan under the Federal Community Development Block Grant and the Home Investment Partnership Programs to reallocate funds from projects that have been canceled. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning, Steve Dickey with Marion County Community Services for the record. This morning we bring to you a request to approve the substantial amendment number 1 to the 2022-23 annual action plan. Based on the county citizens participation plan for this program, anytime there's a threshold that has been reached for changes to the annual action plan, which include an activity described in the annual action plan that is canceled, or any new activity that is not described in the annual action plan as planned, requires a public hearing process. As part of this process, we had a 30-day public comment period, which ended last Friday, and we did not receive any comments during that time period. The changes that are a result of this amendment are the elimination of funding for a project for Habitat for Humanity in $250,000. This project was originally funded. Habitat for Humanity found another source of funds to complete their project and did not need these funds, so they turned them back. And then there was $406,957 that were set aside for a potential project in Mill City for developing affordable housing, which did not come to fruition. As such, these funds need to be reprogrammed, and they are being reprogrammed into $250,000 to our home buyer assistance program, $207,636 to the Mount Angel Street Improvement Project, and then $199,321 for the homeowner rehabilitation program. Those will be the results of the change, and the newly funded projects are part of this year's annual action plan. And I'd be happy to entertain any questions.
Questions for Steve?
No, we talked about this yesterday, and I feel like this is pretty straightforward as far as what changes are being proposed, so I don't have any questions.
Yeah.
You good?
Yep.
All right. I'll take a motion to, well, actually, I don't need a motion. I'm gonna close the public hearing. We have nobody signed up for public comment, so I'm gonna close the public hearing. And I will take a motion to consider resolution.
I move a resolution approving substantial amendment number 1 to the fiscal year 2022-2023 annual action plan under the Federal Community Development Block Grant and the Home Investment Partnerships Program to reallocate funds for the projects that have been canceled.
I second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the resolution? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Okay. Steve, thank you for your work in making this like clear for us, right? We've come a long way. Appreciate all you've done to educate us and make it clear.
Just so you know, we start the renewal process of this next year.
Like,
Yes.
I do want to say, Steve, thank you for your work on this, and Kelly, thank you for your work on this. We've come a long way from when
Oh
we
my
started.
gosh.
Was it 5 years ago, 4 years ago?
Next year will be 5 years.
Yes, next year it'll be 5
Yeah,
years.
so when I think of the bureaucratic mountain we had to climb, I really appreciate the work that both of you have done.
Creating something from scratch in government is never easy.
No.
Never easy. And this was hard.
This was hard.
It had started even before I got here, and my first year was really hard. I was like, what are you people even saying?
And this is one of these places where I'd say as a newish commissioner, I've learned the value of good staff.
Yeah.
So, like,
And all the reading you do. Thanks for that.
Lots of reading, yes.
Lots of
can't
reading.
use newish anymore.
I mean, I'm gonna use it as long as I can.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are you, 6 years in? You're not
it.
new anymore, buddy.
That's it.
Thanks, Steve.
Although I did say to somebody, I don't remember who yesterday, I go, maybe it was you, in our meeting, it's like, you learn something new almost every day.
That's true.
Yeah, so, always learning, Commissioner, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Okay, anything you want to chat about? Anything you want to remember to tell people?
Yeah, so I just want to say that,
Vote.
well, yeah, that's super important. Vote. The election's
vote,
on
vote.
Tuesday. There's lots of places to drop your ballot in Marion County. There's a ballot drop box right out front our office here, or our boardroom here. And then I think, is it Monday? It starts the drive-through drop-off out here on Court Street. So you can just bring your ballot and drop it off, and a security person will put it in the bin. And last night I went to the Valor Mentoring dinner.
how's that?
We were recognized for the contribution we made to the Rec Grange, our fun little Law and Order type video that we did.
I remember that, yeah.
Kind of last minute across the street was aired briefly, and I got made lots of fun of. So you're welcome for taking one for the team. We looked completely ridiculous. And then they threw it up on the screen and gave us a public recognition, talked about our support of that and other projects. It was a great turnout. There was over 400 people at the Kaiser Civic Center. It was packed. Great program. And just as a shout out to the Grange, so it's on Chemawa Road on the west side of River Road. It's a coffee shop and a community center for youth. Anybody can go there for coffee. They have implemented a space for law enforcement. They call it respite. You know, cops usually do paperwork and kind of wait for the next thing, the next call to come in their car, and now they're saying, hey, law enforcement, wherever you are, if you're in the area and you want to take a break, come have a cup of coffee, you can come into our place, and it's open all the time.
Great.
And then on Friday, Soaring Heights is an organization we have supported.
Yeah.
They have their annual fundraiser. I'm speaking at it. I'm looking forward to showcasing the work that they're doing. Just as a side note, I'm always looking for people who are willing to take our investments a little further and really support the community. And I'm sure that you know, and the community definitely knows, that the homeless population struggles to transition into housing because of their animals, usually dogs. And it's difficult in Oregon. There's lots of rules that prohibit pets from coming into shelter. And transitional homes, if they have children in them, DHS precludes pets from being there. But I challenged Victoria and Eric recently to figure out a way to open a home that allows dogs. And they took the challenge. So they're navigating that right now, and Eric is in with both feet, and it's proven to be a little difficult. You know, we tried to pass some legislation in partnership with Senator Patterson, actually, in 2023 to help pets have access to shelter, like reduce the liability to those shelters, and it didn't go anywhere. It's something that I hope she carries forward again. Not a requirement that shelters have to have dogs, but that they could. Because I think that is a huge barrier of people coming off the streets, and it shouldn't be that difficult.
Yeah, and as somebody whose children every week ask him if we can have a dog, I'm relatively sympathetic to folks
Yeah, absolutely. Like, dogs
facing
aren't
the
for everybody,
challenges
but
of dog ownership.
yes.
And as somebody who's had many dogs throughout his very short life on this earth, I understand the responsibility, and we keep saying, no, we're not gonna have another.
Yeah, they're a lot of work.
It is,
can tell ya.
it's like you just can't walk away.
It is on my list of things that I feel
Well,
obligated to give my children
I
before
think
they
you
grow
should-
up.
I
But
think it's a very.
Just borrow
it's-
one of mine.
It's a great thing with your family and kids as they grow up to have a dog. It teaches them responsibility. I'm trying to think how many we had to see. There was Harvey, Yogi, Bailey, Jesse, Cooper, and every one of those dogs taught us a lesson, right?
Yeah.
And of course, one of them in there, Jessie, I actually got a hunt title on her, which I called her the $6,000 Labrador because it was really expensive. But every one of those dogs, and I'll never forget, one time I remember, this was like was it Yogi? I think I was signing the vet bill for $460 as we put him to sleep.
Aw.
And I'm just,
Yeah, that's like a bad day.
tears,
Man, is that a
tears
bad
were
day.
coming out, and I go, I can't. I looked at the vet. I go, I can't believe I'm crying and I'm signing a $460 bill. And the vet looked at me and he says, "If you stop crying, don't get another dog." And I'll never forget that. Right? I mean,
Right.
they're part of your family. And
Definitely, yeah, definitely.
so yeah, that's. I'm gonna push your kids to keep pushing.
I know you will.
What kind of dog do they want?
It changes.
care.
It's
They
like
just
whatever
wanna-
they looked up on the internet last week is the one that they want, or whatever dog they saw at the park. So Anya's 11, so like a couple more years, and then I feel like I'll have at least one kid who maybe next year.
Be responsible.
Who could, yeah, is old enough that if I tell her she has to feed the dog or take the dog out and she doesn't do it, I know that she actually has to own
It's
that
a choice,
decision,
yeah.
right? Rather than when they're little, it's kind of like
Right.
how much of I also am going to say this because I know you're not. Happy Halloween to everybody.
Oh, yeah,
There's
that's
trick or treating tomorrow. Fun fact: Halloween was New Year's in Ireland. So that's actually where it comes from. They had this belief that it was time outside of time because
Irish think they own
the old
everything.
year was ending and the new year didn't start till the sun rose, and so they thought that it was possible for the spirit world and the physical world to interact because it was outside of time. So that's kind of where the history of Halloween comes
I
from.
don't think the sun rises here in the fall. Like, we do this stupid daylight savings crap, and it's this weekend, and I'm like, now we live in like eternal darkness for the next
I know.
6 months, and it's terrible. Somebody should fix that.
You know, Commissioner, speaking of Irish, because I had this sore throat, I'm trying to, be comforted. I used a very, very, what you would call probably the bottom end of Irish whiskey last night,
Ooh.
and Jameson.
Ooh, how did it go?
And made me a hot toddy with some
How
honey
did it go?
and lemon. It actually tasted
did it
pretty
help?
darn good, yeah.
Yeah, sometimes that, I mean, there's a reason why people had a little bit of whiskey when they had a cold or something. That's an old remedy. That's not a new
Well,
remedy. That's
it
an old
just
remedy.
helped me. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
I just had 2, and it helped me go to sleep last night, and I slept until I went to sleep right after the game was over. And go Yankees! I'm glad I don't care who wins. I wanted to see a good World
season,
Series,
yeah,
right?
or a series, yeah.
And although being a kid growing up in Southern California, I was always a San Francisco Giant fan.
Oh, were you?
Yeah.
Not
Willie
not
Mays.
Dodgers. You weren't a Dodgers
No,
fan?
but and then Angels, but
They're Angels.
the Giants were my team, still are my team, because of Willie Mays. And I don't know why I had this attraction to him, to say, "Hey, kid," because he was a gentleman. And,
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely. How about your dad? Was he a Giants fan?
He's a baseball guy, period. But yeah, I think he was with me
Yeah.
with the Giants, but he's probably rooting for the Dodgers. And I kind of, I don't really care. I mean, it's like there is tradition in the Yankees and the Dodgers, right? I mean, both being from New York, and then LA moves. The Dodgers moved to LA when I don't know. It was in the '60s, early '60s. They played in the Coliseum for 2 or 3 years while they built Dodger Stadium. And you know that Dodger Stadium is the 3rd oldest stadium.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
You've got
Wow.
Wrigley and Boston,
Yep.
and then
And
the
then
Dodgers. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah,
And
that
every
really
other
is.
stadium's
I would
been
think of them
built.
as a new one.
And it is a great stadium. I've been there many times. But
I was going for Detroit. I had a buddy in college who was a big Detroit fan, and we always made fun of him because his team was so bad forever.
Yeah.
And this was the year where Detroit was, they were winning some
No
games.
idea what any of you are talking about.
Oh, it's baseball.
I
And
know
it's the
about
only time of year I
baseball.
pay
I
attention.
do not
really.
watch
That's
TV,
it,
so
yeah.
I didn't even know the World Series was on until yesterday. At the dinner, somebody had it on their phone at the table I was sitting at,
Uh-huh.
and they kept providing updates to the table, and I was like, "What are we even doing right now?" Okay.
All right. Well, with all that really important,
Thanks for your time, folks.
we will adjourn.